Victoria from Cozy Country. Welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit more complex. We're going to be doing 3 layered candles that are all Halloween themed. We're going to have 3 different colours in there, so I'm going to show you the techniques on how to do that. So let's get going.
So here I have 800 grams of soy container wax. I have 3 round glass containers. I've chosen a 50ml fragrance oil in pumpkin spice. I also have a packet of wicks. I've chosen 3 different colours to use in my layered candle. I also have my pouring jug, my bain-marie and wooden spoon. And then I also have my electric weighing scales. Give your jars a quick wash. So let's start measuring out our wax. I looked on the Cozy Owl website before doing this and I saw that the jars I'm going to use are roughly 240 grams each. So I'm going to measure out 240 grams of wax to divide 80 grams each for my first layer in the jars. Wax is all measured out, pop it onto a medium heat and let it start to melt. Come back every so often and just keep giving it a good stir around just to ensure that it does melt all the way through and it's nice and even. Don't worry too much about your temperatures at this point either, because once it's melted all the way through, you'll want to let it cool just for 5-10 minutes till it gets to around 65 degrees. So while my wax is cooling down, I'm going to crack on with putting the wicks in the jars. So I'm going to take a glue dot, peel off one side and stick it to the metal base of the wick and make sure it's well stuck, and then peel off the other side too. Get it nice and central into the jar as well. Make sure it's well stuck to the bottom of the jar, and then use a wick centering tool just to keep the wick nice and central, because you don't want it to be moving around when you're pouring your wax. So I've taken the temperature of my wax and it is just below 65 degrees. So I've popped it back onto a low heat so that I can start doing my first layer. I've chosen black to be the first layer in this candle. And I'm not going to need all of the dye for this bit because I've only got a small measurement of wax. So I'm going to start stirring it through, and just make sure that you stir evenly and make sure the dye goes all the way through the wax, just because you don't want to be left with any patches when you're pouring. I've also chosen to go with 14 millilitres of fragrance oil, so I'm just going to measure that out here. I usually like around a 2-to-1 ratio with my candles. Now the fragrance is all in, I'm just going to pop my wax back onto a very low heat just to give it a really good stir around and make sure that the fragrance goes all the way through the wax. Just be careful whilst you're stirring as well. You don't want to be too rough with it because it can cause some air pockets, which when the wax is setting in the containers, it might cause sinkholes. So just be gentle whilst you're doing it. So pour into your pouring jug, which I have preheated, and I'm now going to measure out on my electric weighing scales 80 grams of the melted wax. I'm going to measure out 80 grams for each layer, and then I know at least each layer will be even. And once this layer is being poured, I'm going to leave it for around half an hour to set. So during that time, I'm going to repeat the process and get this next layer poured, leaving half an hour between this layer also, and then repeating the process once again for my last layer. So onto our final layer. Once this has been poured, I'm going to leave it 24 hours before I can start trimming the wick. So 24 hours later, I'm going to remove my wick centering tool. I'm going to trim my wick to around 5 millimeters. This is the perfect measurement so that you can start burning your candle, leaving no wells, and the wick will not be drowning in wax. And there you have it, all 3 layers, done.